before the chaos. A courtroom is supposed to be a place of control. Every word measured, every movement watched, every emotion kept behind locked doors. People believe that once you step inside those walls, nothing unexpected can happen. That morning, everything looked exactly the way it should. The judge sat high behind the bench calm. Unreadable lawyers shuffled papers. Already tired of repeating the same arguments, the jury sat quietly, hands folded, eyes forward, and at the center of the room stood the defendant. He didn't move much. He didn't speak. He didn't even look around from the outside. Esse meth column took. Column. His eyes were open but unfocused, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely. The judge called the case number. The clerk read the charges. The defendant slowly stood up. Nothing unusual about that, but something felt off. There was no fear on his face, no anger, no desperation, just emptiness, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but from exhaustion. The defense attorney began to speak professional, confident control. He talked about procedures, about Tomlin, about reasonable doubt. Words filled the room, but none of them reached the man standing in orange. For him, this wasn't just another hearing. It was another delay, another reminder that his life had been paused, while the world outside kept moving. Weeks turned into months, months into years. Same room, same bench, same question unanswered. When does this end? People often forget something important. A defendant is not just a name on a file, not just a case number. He's a human being, forced to sit silently while others speak for him. And when someone is stripped of control for too long, the mind begins to crack in quiet ways. The defendant took a small step forward. No one noticed. Another step, still nothing. The attorney kept talking. The judge listened, but something in the air had changed. A tension you can't explain, only feeling. The kind of tension that shows up right before everything breaks. The moment everything broke. The sound came first, a sharp scrape of metal against wood. Heads turned too late. The defendant lunged forward. In one violent motion, he vaulted over the defense table. Papers flew into the air. Chairs slammed backward. Someone screamed to the attorney. Barely had time to react before he was knocked off balance, his body crashing hard against the floor. The courtroom exploded into noise security. Get home, stop him. The judge stood up shouting orders that no one could hear anymore. The room was chaos. A court officer rushed forward alone. That was the mistake. The defendant twisted violently, using his handcuffs like a weapon. Metal struck bone. The officer went down. Gasps filled the room. Jurors scrambled away from their seats. This wasn't panic. This was precision. The defendant wasn't flailing. He wasn't trying to escape. He was focused, controlled. Controlled then. Then the gavel slammed down Bungle. Bungle. The sound cut through everything. And in that instant, the courtroom fell silent. No screaming, no men, just shock. Security officers finally swarmed in, tackling the defendant to the ground. Hands grabbed. Voices shouted. The handcuffs clicked tighter, clicked. That sound echoed louder than anything else. The attorney lay on the floor, breathing hard, staring up at the ceiling. His fussy one with pain, it was filled with realization. This place, this courtroom was never as safe as people believed. The judge slowly sat back down. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his robe. The cleric spoke softly, almost afraid to break the silence. Court is in recess. And just like that, the moment ended. But the impact didn't, because everyone in that room knew one thing. They had just witnessed the exact moment the courtroom lost control. The moment court lost control. The courtroom was quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like the air itself was holding its breath. For a few seconds after the last witness stepped down, no one spoke. Not the judge, not the lawyers, not even the restless spectators who had packed the benches since sunrise. The silence pressed against everyone's ears, heavy and uncomfortable, as if something unseen was about to break. The accused sat motionless at the defense table. Her hands were folded to her lap, nucleus pale, fingers trembling despite her effort to stay still. She had cried earlier. Everyone had seen their eyes dry empty, the kind of empty that comes after a storm, has passed and left nothing. Standing across the aisle, The victim's family sat rigid, faces carved from anger and grief. A mother clutched a photograph to her chest like a shield. A father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so hard it looked painful. They had waited years for this moment. Justice, they believed, was finally within reach. The judge cleared his throat. "Prosecution," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You may present your final argument." The prosecutor stood. He was confident, almost too confident. His suit was perfectly pressed, his voice steady, his steps measured as he walked toward the jury box. He had told this story many times before. A story of guilt, a story of cruelty, a story with a clear villain. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, "this case is not complicated." A few heads nodded. "It is about a choice," he continued, "a choice made in cold blood, a choice that destroyed a life and shattered a family forever." He turned slowly and pointed toward the accused. "The defendant wants you to believe she is a victim. She wants your sympathy, but do not be fooled by tears or silence. The evidence does not lie." He raised a file in his hand. "Phone records, financial transactions, witness testimony, every path leads back to her." The accused did not react. She stared at the wooden surface of the table, as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. The prosecutor's voice grew stronger. She had motive. She had opportunity. And she had time. He paused, letting his words sink in. And when the moment came, she did not hesitate. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor turned back to the jury. "You are not here to feel sorry. You are here to deliver justice." He closed the file with a sharp snap. "Find her guilty." Sat down. The silence returned thicker than before. All eyes shifted to the defense table. The defense lawyer stood slowly. Unlike the prosecutor, he looked tired. His tie was slightly loose, his shoulders heavy, as if the weight of the case had settled into his bones. He took a moment before speaking, scanning the room. Not the jury, not the judge, but the people. "Justice," he said softly, "is not as simple as it sounds." The prosecutor frowned. The defense lawyer walked a few steps forward. "You've heard a story today?" he continued. "A neat story. A story where everything fits perfectly. Is stopped, but life is not neat." He turned toward the jury, "And neither is the truth." A few jurors leaned forward. "Yes, there is evidence," he said, "but evidence without context is dangerous. It becomes a weapon instead of a guide." He gestured toward the accused. "You have looked at her. For weeks, you have seen her cry. You have seen her break. And maybe you've asked yourselves why." The accused swallowed hard. "Why would someone risk everything?" he asked. "Their freedom, their future, their life?" Paused. "Unless," he said quietly, "they were already trapped." The room stirred. The judge shifted in his seat. The defense lawyer took a breath. "This case is not about a single moment," he said. "It's about years of pressure, years of fear, years of silence." The prosecutor jumped to his feet. "Objection," he snapped. "Speculation. Speculation." The judge raised his hand. "Overruled," he said after a brief pause. "Procede." A flicker of surprise crossed the prosecutor's face. The defense lawyer nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor," he continued, voice steady but intense. "The truth is uncomfortable," he said, "and sometimes it doesn't come wrapped in clear answers." He looked directly at the jury. "When you deliberate, I ask you not just to look at what happened, but why." He stepped back. "And if there is doubt," he said, "real doubt, then the law demands mercy." Sat down. The courtroom felt charged now, like a wire pulled too tight. The judge inhaled slowly. "Before we send the jury to deliberate," he said, "the defendant has the right to speak." A collective gasp swept through the room. The accused's head snapped up. Her lawyer turned toward her, eyes widening slightly. She shook her head at first, No. She wasn't ready. But the judge waited. Do you wish to address the court? He asked gently. The accused's hands trembled violently now. Se stood. The sound of the chair scraping against the floor echoed like thunder. She took one step forward. Then another. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I didn't plan this, she said. The room froze. I didn't wake up one day and decide to ruin lives, she continued. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. Tears filled her eyes. I wanted it to stop. The prosecutor shook his head. Stop. What? Someone in the audience muttered. She took a shaky breath. The fear, she said. The threats. The nights. I couldn't sleep. The judge leaned forward. Please, he said calmly. Speak clearly. She nodded. I was told to stay quiet, she said. I was told no one would believe me. Her voice cracked, and I believed that. A woman in the audience began to cry softly. I tried to leave, the accused said. I tried to ask for help. She looked at the jury, eyes desperate, but every door was closed. The prosecutor stood abruptly. This is a performance, he said. She's manipulating. Sit down, the judge snapped. The courtroom erupted. People shouted. Some stood. Others argued. A court officer rushed forward. Order. Allos. The judge banged the gavel. The sound was sharp, but it barely cut through the noise. The accused raised her voice for the first time. I am not a monster. Se criet. The words echoed. I am a human being who was pushed too far. The room fell silent. Even the judge stopped moving. Tears streamed down her face now. I live with this every day, she said. No matter what you decide, I already lost. She turned toward the victim's family. I am sorry, she whispered. The mother stood suddenly. You're sorry now. Se screamed. Officers rushed to restrain her. The courtroom descended into chaos, shouting, crying. Confusion. The judge slammed the gavel again and again. Clear the courtroom. Order. People were escorted out. Voices echoed down the hall. The jury was rushed away. The accused collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. The judge leaned back, eyes closed for a moment. This was no longer just a trial. It was a reckoning. And when the doors finally closed, one truth hung in the air. The court had lost control, and nothing would ever be the same again.